Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Hamas promising a permanent state of war against Israel, while Israel's defense minister says there's no time limit on how long the conflict will last. And Israeli forces push even deeper into the terrorist stronghold of the Gaza City amid talk of a hostage deal. Anti-Semitism at the United Nations. Congress hears about what some are calling rampant anti-Semitism and systematic anti-Israel bias at the UN. Who are the militia groups who are also attacking Israel in addition to Hamas? We'll look at these potentially dangerous groups supported by Iran. And Republican presidential candidates holding their first debate since the war broke out between Israel and Hamas. We're going to hear what they had to say about U.S. support for Israel, the danger from Iran, and what they said about each other. All those stories and more ahead today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Lots to get to. Let's begin this half hour with Israel's war with Hamas as Israel destroys their terror tunnels and amid talk of a hostage deal. International pressure is growing for a pause, but Hamas is promising a long-term permanent war against the Jewish state. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
About 50,000 residents of the northern Gaza Strip responded to the IDF's repeated calls to move southward out of harm's way and away from the fighting in and around Gaza City.
There is no ceasefire. We are battling Hamas. There is no ceasefire. Gazan civilians are fleeing from the north to the south because they understand Hamas is using them as a human shield.
The IDF announced it's made significant progress on the ground and has now destroyed more than 130 terror tunnels. It also released this intercepted conversation between two Hamas terrorists saying they can use ambulances anytime they want to move around. On Israel's northern border, the war inside Syria is expanding, with both the U.S. and Israel launching airstrikes against Iranian-backed targets. The U.S. carried out a strike on a weapons warehouse used by militias backed by Iran. The strikes came after a growing number of attacks on bases with U.S. troops. Back in Israel, the watchdog group Honest Reporting released this expose that shows Gaza-based freelance journalists who work for publications like AP, the New York Times, CNN, and Reuters documented the October 7th massacre. Gil Huffman of Honest Reporting says this raises ethical questions.
What were they doing in our country? You know, journalists just can't go into our country without permission. That's something that terrorists do. They infiltrated together with terrorists. That alone was aiding and abetting what the terrorists were doing. Here you're talking about people who took pictures with selfies with tanks as people were being murdered.
This video of Hassan Islaya, a freelancer for CNN and AP, shows him in front of an Israeli tank the morning of the attack. And this photo shows him pictured with Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the October 7th massacre. AP says it had no knowledge of the October 7th attacks before they happened. Hamas leaders also revealed their plans for what they call a permanent state of war with Israel, telling the New York Times they hope the Arab world would stand with them, saying only violence could revive the cause of the Palestinian people. Benny Gantz, a member of Israel's war cabinet, says the war with Hamas deals with Israel's very existence and that there is no time limit on how long it will last. As international pressure grows on Israel for a ceasefire, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson came to Israel to show his support when he met with some IDF soldiers from the UK.
What I see is the very clear distinction between people like the soldiers in this room who try as far as they can and who are trained to minimize civilian casualties and suffering, and people who set out to commit atrocities against civilians, who chase civilians around their living rooms, who follow them into bunkers to murder them.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, Boris Johnson made clear his support for Israel, but international pressure is growing for a pause in the fighting to gain the release of more hostages. Could Israel go along?
Well, first of all, Ephraim, let me add that Scott Morrison, he's the former Prime Minister of Australia. He joined Boris Johnson. He added his endorsement to what he felt Israel is doing. He felt there was no moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. And to your question, I think Israel can do small pauses in the fighting for a few hours like they did yesterday to let Gazans escape. But a 3-day pause that's been proposed by people like U.S. President Joe Biden is likely off the table for Israel. They felt it would stop the military momentum of the IDF. Also, it would give Hamas an opportunity to rearm and regroup and put IDF soldiers at risk. And 3, it would put more pressure on Israel to keep that ceasefire going and likely lose international support if they resume military action.
Israel is evacuating civilians despite world pressure on them to obey the laws of war. Doesn't Israel feel like they are obeying those laws while Hamas uses civilians as shields?
They do, and they feel like there's a double standard while, they fight this war on 2 battlefields. One, the military battlefield, where they feel like they're obeying international law. You hear that from soldiers as well, that exactly what they're trained before they get to the battlefield. 2, the battle is also for world public opinion. And the challenge for Israel is that it's hard to fight the images coming out of the Gaza Strip with destroyed buildings and dead and wounded Palestinians, some of whom did not heed the pleas of the IDF to get out of harm's way. And remember, the IDF, Ephraim, has dropped over 1 million leaflets telling Palestinians to get out of harm's way. They've sent about 6 million text messages and about 4 million phone calls. And what they're doing is they tell people get out and get buildings before they're destroyed, to get out of harm's way, and then where to go. So this is unprecedented in modern warfare, but that's what Israel is doing to prevent civilian casualties.
Hamas is talking about a permanent state of war, and Israel's defense minister says there is no time limit on how long the war with Hamas will last. Is Israel really digging in for a long conflict, even after the current war ends?
They are, Ephraim, and I'll tell you why. They realize perhaps more than now that this is really a war without end. And the battle Israel is facing and the West is facing right now goes beyond the current conflict. For groups like Hamas, it's never over. For Hamas, it's all the Islamic concept of the house of peace and the house of war. The house of peace in the Islamic mindset is the world that's under the control of Islam. The house of war is the world not under the control of Islam. And so the house of peace is at an eternal war with the house of war to put it under the control of Islam. So the war is never over. And the war is not only with Israel, and that's what we've been hearing over and over again. It's with the United States and all free countries. That's why a brother of a hostage in Congress said yesterday that we're next, meaning the United States, and asked people to wake up. And why many intercessors right now are saying it's a time of urgent 911 prayer for the United States, for protection, and for people in Europe as well. Anywhere where Islam is trying to take over. And many times in Europe right now, it's an urgent thing because many Muslims have come in, millions have come into European countries, putting them at risk as well.
I want to turn to what news organizations are saying about the freelance photographer who worked with them, who was photographed with the mastermind on October 7th for the massacre.
Well, CNN says he suspended that reporter and that journalist, and AP says it really had no foreknowledge of the October 7th attacks. And I would add, Ephraim, that the government here in Israel is saying these journalists were accomplices and actually crimes against humanity, contrary to professional ethics. It's also sent an urgent letter to the bureau chiefs of all these media organizations that employed this journalist and demanded immediate action. But I would say, for many of these organizations and honest reporting, we interviewed Gil Hoffman, the director here in Jerusalem, about that. And he's just really saying this is something that these organizations should be aware of. They were publishing photographs by the AP that very day or day after about actually what was happening on the ground there. And it's a very, very serious allegation.
Indeed it is. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joining us from Jerusalem. Thanks, Chris. Continue to stay safe, and we are certainly continuing to pray for you and the team. Turning now to our nation's capital, questions about anti-Semitism at the United Nations addressed in a congressional hearing Wednesday as the UN works and refugee agencies came under close scrutiny. Lawmakers heard testimony on what some are calling rampant anti-Semitism and systematic anti-Israel bias at the world body. CBN's Dale Hurd is on this story.
The hearing focused on one agency in particular, where UN employees openly celebrated the October 7th attack on Israel. In its new report, the group UN Watch documents how 20 teachers and staff members with UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, rejoiced over the massacre of Israeli civilians in their social media accounts.
Allah is great. Allah is great. Reality surpasses our wildest dreams, posted UNRWA Gaza teacher Osama Ahmed.
UN Watch Executive Director Hillel Neuer told the Subcommittee on Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations that the celebration of the attack by UNRWA staff should not have been a surprise, considering what was already known about the agency's association with Hamas.
UNRWA staff regularly call to murder Jews and create teaching materials that glorify terrorism, encourage martyrdom, demonize Israelis, and incite anti-Semitism.
Middle East expert Dr. Jonathan Schanzer.
UNRWA employees have been exposed as members of Hamas, the terrorist group that slaughtered 1,400 Israelis in cold blood on October 7th. This might explain how UNRWA's educational materials refer to Israel as the enemy, teach math by counting martyred terrorists, and include the phrase jihad as one of the doors to paradise in grammar lessons.
Neuer says that since the Hamas massacre, the overwhelming majority of statements by UN bodies and officials have pointed the finger at Israel, following a pattern there in which Israel is held to a standard not applied to any other nation.
At the UN General Assembly last year, there was one resolution on Iran, one on Syria, one on North Korea, and 15 on Israel. 0 resolutions were adopted on China, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and 180 other countries.
There is no question that certain UN member states, bodies, and the General Assembly have a negative, disproportionate focus on Israel and routinely support singling it out more than any other country in the world.
In 2022 alone, UNRWA received $344 million in funding from the United States. This for an agency that experts say includes staff members who clearly support Hamas. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, Republican presidential candidates take the stage again for their first debate since the war began between Hamas and Israel. We're going to bring you some highlights from their clash in Miami when we come back. The Republican presidential candidates again squared off, this time in their third debate. It was their first time going head-to-head since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war. Mark Martin has this story.
Frontrunner former President Donald Trump was once again absent from the debate stage, leaving the candidates to focus on foreign policy and the U.S. relationship with Israel in its war with Hamas. Candidates responding to the question what they would urge Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists. They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could.
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them.
America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel.
Vivek Ramaswamy sending a message of support tempered by an America First stance.
What I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border.
The candidates also making it clear that Iran is the greater threat to Israel and the world.
You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies.
We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran.
Ramaswamy painted the former UN ambassador as an extension of a generation that led America into costly Middle East wars.
Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
Haley firing back.
I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
The Republican presidential hopefuls also addressed the surge in anti-Semitism since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Several said they would pressure college administrations to crack down.
Any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period.
If the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected.
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked.
Meanwhile, President Trump held a rally at the same time for several thousand people in Florida, where he was endorsed by his former White House press secretary and Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Still ahead, it is not just Hamas who's fighting Israel. Various other militia organizations supported by Iran are also launching attacks against the Jewish state. But who are these groups? We're going to bring you a look. Coming up right after this. Since the start of the Gaza war, several Middle East militia groups have joined Hamas in the fight against Israel and the United States. While the U.S. has expanded its presence in the region, it has kept response limited over concerns it could ignite a much wider war. CBN's Gary Lane is on this story.
Rockets fired against Israel from Lebanon and Yemen. U.S. troops also under attack. The Iranian regime continues to wage war indirectly in the Middle East through a network of proxy militias. For Iran, it's all about plausible deniability. The Islamic regime can claim it's not behind or involved in these attacks, all the while calling for death to the Zionists and America. It's important to know how far these Iranian tentacles reach throughout the region. Among them include the Houthis, a tribe of Shiite Muslims out of Yemen. This homegrown militia calls itself Ansarallah, the fighters of Allah. Through Iranian support, the Houthis have greatly multiplied from about 2,000 armed fighters in 2005 to as many as 120,000 today.
Like Hamas, it depends on the Iranians for its military abilities, for its hardware, for its missiles, for its rockets, for its weaponry. The Houthis in Yemen are one of the clients that the Iranians like to switch on and off when they want to attack an enemy country without being held directly responsible for it.
In 2019, Houthis launched a massive drone attack, targeting the world's largest oil processing facility in Saudi Arabia. Since the October 7th attack, the Saudis, United Arab Emirates, and United States have shot down Houthi missiles and drones headed for Israel. A greater threat than this group comes from South Lebanon, where Hezbollah has more than 150,000 rockets ready to launch en masse against Israel. Created and supported by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Hezbollah also controls the Lebanese government. Last week, in a public speech, leader Hassan Nasrallah stopped short of announcing an all-out war, while indicating all options were on the table. Middle East Forum chief researcher Jonathan Spire.
Iran has yet to instruct Hezbollah to really plunge into total involvement in the war and open a second front. They're trying to kind of distract attention from Israel with this drip of consistent attacks each day.
Spire believes the presence of the USS Gerald Ford carrier strike group in the region, combined with Israeli military power, is currently deterring greater involvement.
Israel has made clear if Hezbollah does enter the war, Israel will hit back against Lebanon with full force.
Further east, the little-known proxy group Islamic Resistance in Iraq could potentially distract and ultimately pose a great threat to the United States. 2,500 U.S. troops are stationed at bases in Iraq, with as many as 1,000 remaining in Syria. Their presence is designed to limit influence from Russia and Iran in the region. Over the past 2 weeks, the IRI has claimed responsibility for repeated attacks against U.S. troops. including at least 23 missile strikes and multiple drone strikes. This little-known group, formed in 2020, is comprised of members from various smaller Iranian-backed militias.
Not really feasible or tenable for America to continue kind of absorbing these hits. At least if America wants this to stop, the United States should take a little bit firmer action against these militias. At the end of the day, these are acts these are military acts. These are acts of war. Even if they're not, if nobody's yet been hurt or killed in them, thank goodness. I think that it's not really acceptable that United States forces should be facing daily harassment.
So far, the United States response has been limited to airstrikes in Syria on locations linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Greater steps against these proxies or their boss could come in various forms, including more severe oil sanctions or even strikes inside Iran. Military leaders, however, realize that either action could successfully result in deterrence or an escalation that possibly leads to a much bigger war. Gary Lane, CBN News.
You can hear more from Jonathan Spire about the threats from Iran on this week's episode of The Global Lane. You can also hear from Michael Reagan talking about Veterans Day with some amusing, interesting stories about his father and former president, Ronald Reagan. And Katie Talento discusses the state of healthcare in America. You can watch The Global Lane tonight on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or YouTube. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Thursday. It's coming up.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Time now for your Thursday Thankful. I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for divine breath. Each inhale and exhale are miraculous. They provide life, and you are the giver of all life. And to that prayer of gratitude, may we all say amen and amen. This is a great day to walk in gratitude for the simplest of things, like air and breath. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel at any time, as well as online. That is cbnnews.com. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you tomorrow.